All right. Hello, hello. So, last week I posted a video where I went over the current state of AI and how it's going to change the way jobs are going to be done and communities are going to be built. So, I just wanted to take it a step further and I created a whole slide deck using AI, but to some extent. But basically, it's based on something that I'm actually working on right now. So, for context, I am a engineering analyst at a custom cabinet production factory, and I am developing a framework which I am putting into place. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the details of that because it is, in a way, confidential and company owned. But what I can explain to you is the framework which I put together. And there's not much of a secret behind the framework. I'm very sure if you go through if you go through YouTube and throughout the internet, you're going to find many different communities implementing similar frameworks. But the thing is, most of that is at this point relegated to the tech bros, the automation bros, the AI community. They, as we speak, are using, developing, and experimenting with different variations of this framework. But what I wanted to do here is bring that to the group of people who I think could benefit from this just as much or potentially even more. And that is using AI to help systematize and optimize a production facility, a small scale production facility, the ones that, let's say, are just starting off with like 5 people. And without spending too much time on the front slide, let's keep going. So, who is this for? Who is this for? It's honestly for the person or group of people who understand a product really well. They're passionate about building something. They want to build something. They want to build it, sell it, share it with the world. But they don't have they don't have the tech skills, the marketing skills, the the skills to be able to put together something they can use in their systems. Basically, project management, to some extent, even the sales, marketing, and all of this. This system is basically to help. Should I call it a startup? Maybe a startup, basically a startup, a smaller sized factory, like 5 people to 10 people, even less. I would argue this would benefit companies that are sub 5 people companies or sub 5 people groups of people who want to sell stuff, but they just don't know how to do that. So this framework is for you. And bonus points if you have ADHD and are somebody who just wants to do everything. Because with this framework, you will be able to do almost everything and do it on time and do it right. So, up until today, what were the problems? If you were somebody who, let's say, wanted to start your own little production facility, for context, you worked at another facility for a couple of years, you worked with another crew, you've got all this experience 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience, and you want to set up something yourself, right? And you're going to go into it thinking, okay, now I am going to build out the product. I'm going to create a product list of the things I want to build, the things I'm not going to build or maybe save for later. Then you are going to think about, okay, now I need a quote, and I have to make a quote list, a quotation for these potential customers. Now I need to reach out to them. How am I going to reach out to them? So I'm going to start calling people, I'm going to start emailing people, searching them up on communities, sending them messages, following up with them. And maybe you're doing it yourself, or maybe you have a buddy or two that you're with and they're doing it with you. And so now you're juggling everything. You're juggling sending mails, calling people, picking up the phone when they call you back, missing the call, trying to follow back. They probably end up ghosting you anyways. And if they do, you're gonna keep sending them. Maybe the price was too high. Maybe the price wasn't too high. Maybe you overcharged or you undercharged. You're gonna come up with problem after problem after problem. And I know this firsthand. I work in such a field, and the amount of issues you have to go through every single day, at some point you're going to go through the same mistake 1 month down the line or 2 months down the line. You're gonna come across the same mistake again, and you'll wonder why this wasn't fixed, why you missed out on an opportunity, why you didn't plan out a project in a way that would have been optimal. There's going to be so many issues, and every single time you're going to be thinking, maybe some kind of software will help me with this, but I need to invest time in learning the software while I do all this stuff as well, right? But you won't be able to do that. And not yet, at least. You're still trying to build up a system where it can be sustainable and you can scale appropriately when the time comes. And the benefit to this is, you know, the more smaller groups of people embody this framework, the better. And the idea for that is, right now, let's say in your field, a given product is going to cost you $3,000 to $4,000, hypothetically speaking. And a lot of that is going towards salaries and wages. So if you run your production efficiently, lean, with a smaller number of people, in an ideal society, you wouldn't need to charge as much. Your prices would come down. And by having those prices come down, hopefully they do. I mean, I know there's greed, but let's try not to be greedy. That wishful thinking in some cases, but I know that supply and demand will tend towards that. So here's what I'm thinking. You have one group of 10 people building this one product, and the selling price of that product is $4,000. If now, for that $4,000, there's only a certain group or quantity of people who can afford that product. But if you downsize this company to 5 people, and or you split it into 2 groups of 5 people, I would think the ideal situation is, the way things are going, this company A is going to lay off people, and those experienced people hopefully set up a company of their own, and they build the same thing, a different thing, or a better product. Or maybe they build something closer to the same thing because it's part of their experience. But maybe they'll market it differently, they'll brand it differently. So now you have 2 lean teams capable of producing probably 75% of what they originally could, but their costs have gone down so much more. And now you have 2 groups of people who are selling something to a market, and there's more supply. There's more supply, and there's also, but because the price is still high, the demand is not yet there. So both of them are going to have to shrink their sales prices down, and in this case, ideally, engage a bigger market. And by doing this, you have more people able to afford these products, which now, with this initially 10 people selling 1.5 times as much of that product, at a reduced price. That's the kind of thing that I am envisioning for the future. And this framework is to help Team B get up and running as quickly as possible. So that's where the beauty of this framework is. It's to be able to set up and get running as soon as possible, provided you understand the product that you're selling. The thing about AI is it can do so many things, but you need to be able to tell it what to do. You need to be able to guide it, give it the SOPs, and have it build. And you need to supervise the build. You need to understand what it's building and what it's building for, and why it's putting this system in the positions that they're in, and how it's configuring all of that. So you're basically unloading all of your process on your product with regards to your product into a system. That's basically what we're trying to do with this framework. And before the little bit over here that says build for under $2,000 a year, the reason for that is we're using AI coding assistants to be able to do this and speed up the entire process. And right now, you'll be using quite a bit of it. And as of the time of recording, February 2026, February the 9th, the coding assistants, the best one personally, I think, is Anthropic's Claude Code, and no affiliation in any way or shape or form, but they probably, arguably, at this point in time, in my opinion, have the best coding model, and the the one with enough usage, let's say, goes for around $100 a month. So that comes to around 1,200 a year, and most of our systems are going to be built locally on the personal or company computer, let's say, or maybe production server if you have one of those. But more than likely it's going to be on your computer. And that's all going to be using for the most part, free to use open source software that's running locally. So you can take care of the security and all of that stuff. So you're not selling your data to some other people. The only reason I'm giving an $800 cap in here is when you start trying to do marketing, advertising, outreach. At that point, you are going to want to use like ad campaigns and email campaigns. So you need to buy domains and set up these advertisements. All of that is going to cost money, potentially even more than just 800, but I would say let's try to start a little small. So at least for the first year, I don't see it going more than 2,000 unless you somehow become really successful and you really want to push your ads and online engagement. Then maybe you might end up going more than that. But for the most part, it's probably going to be less. So, yeah, the core insight is using AI assisted coding in a way that creates the structure exactly how you want it, and in a way that it grows with you and with the company. That's basically what this is. So I've heard many people in the business industry speak. Maybe it's because I'm an engineering analyst and I think a different way. I think from product side, I'm product facing. I start from the product. So maybe that kind of skews the way I think with regards to this. But I feel like the system in itself depends on it. So the system in itself depends on a solid and strong foundation. And the reason why I think people used to say that you start off with the sale and then you create the product, the reason you do that is because you're trying to focus on speed and customer validation. You focus on speed and customer validation, which is true, but at the cost and risk of not fully understanding or believing in your product. And the reason you had to do that back then is because if you wanted to research and develop a product and try to figure out all of this stuff, it's going to take months. It's going to take months, no joke. But if you have AI, you can do that in days. You can do that in days. If you already understand the product, you're just putting it into the system and having it crunch all the numbers and try to figure out all the variables, which I'll show you. And when it's able to do that at that speed, you just have the best of both worlds. You set up, you set up your product, churn the variables, and take that with confidence and do your sale. And you don't need to wait months to get that done. You don't need to wait weeks to get that done. Ideally, you can get that done in a couple of days if you do it right. And of course, you try it, you test it, and you refine it as you go. So that's the thing that's going to progress over time and probably and hopefully infinitely. But to get things started, it's probably just going to take you a couple of days. So let's go into the framework, which is 8 phases in my estimation. We start off with product formulation. Product formulation is basically just deconstructing your product. So if I have to give you an example with cabinetry, I would do, okay, the cabinets we sell, what materials we use, what hardware we use, what machinery we use, how long the machinery takes to get things done, what are the optimal, what's the optimal state of that machine, how many people does it need, what what tools, accessories does it need to be able to function? How long can it function before it needs to be, before parts need to be changed? That maybe you don't need to go into that type of granularity just yet, but it's good to allocate for that in the entire system setup. So then materials, what sizes of materials, the pricing of the materials, how they get used, what quantities of material. So cabinetry, plywood, particle board, MDF, laminate sheets, like all of that stuff. So depending on what you're building, right? So you just need to break it down into every single section. This is where people who like the product and they like building stuff, they go, you can go wild with this. Go wild with it. Just write it down, speak to the agent, talk about it, go through it, go through your thoughts, converse with it, and map it all out. And you're mapping everything out into databases. So this is where you would need to understand like relational databases like Postgres or some other SQL database if you want. There are many variations. You can probably look that up on YouTube, or there's many other developer-based channels that would probably explain that way better than I could. But you don't really need to understand how to use them. You just need to understand how they work because you're using the AI coding assistant to work with it. Of course, if you are interested, you can kind of converse with the agent and see how it builds it. You can ask it questions about what it does, why it's doing it, what does the relationships mean, the one to many, many to many, one to one. So like let's take a product connected to the workstation database to understand how efficient the database is with regards to the pricing, the times that things get made, and how that comes to your final product list, let's say. So you can map all of that out in databases, like the types of databases we've been using for 20 to 30 years or even more. So those databases are still plenty powerful for this. It's just that you don't need the expertise to be able to run them. You just need to understand the product that you want to put into it. The AI assistant is going to take care of setting the database up. 2, operational mapping. Basically, I just said you're mapping people, you're mapping workstations, you're mapping workflows, A to B to C, going from step 1, procurement, fabrication, QA, packaging for delivery, just mapping all of that out. Just map all of that out. You can, in your CRM, you can ask the agent to build multiple tabs and just set up like, okay, I want a specific space for me to delegate and manage tasks for people. If it's just a couple of people, even that, just do that. and specific workstations, the packaging workstation, the fabrication, which fabrication, how are you mapping that out? Just put all of that in there, speak to the agent and have it map that out. The relational database, I already went over that. The knowledge base and SOP, this one is agentic in nature. This one would be the thing that would come across as being a little off compared to everything else. The rest, you kind of already have a mental idea of what this is. The knowledge base and SOPs, this is agentic. So this is where AI comes into play in your database, in your system. Not just as a part of the coding assistant, but as a part of the system. So basically a knowledge base in agentic terms is like a memory for a agent. So what you essentially would, let's put it this way, you have lots of documentations, like standard operating procedures, like all your conversations with the agent, what your product is, who your ideal customer is, the technical specifications, the marketing words and labelings of your product. All of that stuff is hyper tuned to what you want. Of course, you don't need to build it all right away. The beauty is you can add to this over time. You can add to this over time, and all of that documentation, what essentially happens is it goes through a process called chunking. So chunking is basically taking chunks of the document and assigning metadata to each of them, so you can so there's context as to what that chunk is about with respect to the document. So let's say product info, you have specifications. So specifications, product details, description, all of that are in a document about product A. And you can have it product A, B, C, and D. So you'll chunk, the A agent will take care of it, but it's going to chunk it and put it into a knowledge base, or what is called a vector database in agentic terms. It's going to put it into a vector database, and you can add other features to it for memory and recollection. There's a tool called Mem0 that lets an agent access this database and edit, update, and delete items in it. So it's basically having this mapped out database that is way more powerful, but also more ambiguous than a structured database like the Postgres database that you're familiar with. Just imagine a map. Imagine this scattered star-like map. The best way I can explain is like picture the Milky Way galaxy where stars are all over the place. So everything is mapped with respect to each other. So there's lots of context for the agent where it's not really looking at database 1, 2, and 3 based on columns. That's not how this works. This is, okay, I'm asking about product definitions. So let's say I speak about, let's say I speak about a framed cabinet, that goes into a vanity, or it goes into a kitchen. So it looks at that and it looks at that chunk, and then it sees, okay, a framed cabinet that goes into a kitchen, it's going to have context with dimensions, it's going to have context with best practices for kitchen cabinetry. It'll out of nowhere maybe even get context with the type of sink that you want to use in here based on the style of cabinetry. It can do crazy things. It can do very crazy things in a vector database. So that's where the knowledge base comes in. And the reason you want to do that is later on, if you do this right, you can have the agent do things that you would very likely need a person to do. And what I mean by that is, like, as I've mentioned, like troubleshooting, maybe client scoping. So when people like if somebody calls you and they want to speak to somebody to request a quote, you could answer the phone, or you could have somebody dedicated to do that. But maybe what you could do is you could have an introductory window where somebody calls you, and one second. where an introductory window where you're trying to scope out if the client is potentially interested or not. Maybe they're just checking for product information. You can connect the agent. You can have an agent set up to chat with them or to talk to them, and you can connect that agent to this knowledge base. And the brilliance of that is now it has all this context with regards to your product in a way that a regular agent with one single prompt is ever going to. And you can do that for client facing and even internal user facing. Maybe let's say you hire a new person to help you. Let's say you end up scaling to a point where you are hiring more people and you need to hire more people. You could sit them down and converse with them as you should. And once they're done, you could do two things. One, you could give them a stack of documentation and SOP, so in case they have any questions, they can read through the entire thing. Or they could converse with the AI, and the AI can tell them, okay, this document is what's going to help you with your question right now. And for your information, this is probably going to help you based on the projects we've done, based on the issues we've come across. Based on all of this, this is the best bit of advice for you. And these are the documents you should be checking to learn more. That AI agent with that knowledge base is going to be able to do that. And that goes into project intelligence. Framework part number 5. Project intelligence is, give me 1 second. I need to charge my phone. Okay, I just had to put my phone to charge. I'm using that as the camera. So, project intelligence. Project intelligence is basically branching off of the knowledge base. So, you want to track every project that you encounter and you do. And you want to track everything. So, you've mapped out your systems, you mapped out your relational database, and you mapped out your product. So what does this let you do? This lets you track your labor costs, it lets you track your labor timing, it lets you track your materials used, it lets you track all of that stuff, right? So now being able to track all of that, you can go into project intelligence. So when you start doing, hopefully you may have 1 or 2 projects that you're working or you kind of closed with a customer. So now what you can do is track the project. So this might be manual. So this first 1 or 2 times is of course going to be manual because you need to figure out a way to track that. So one way is if in your process of production you have a way of QC, quality control and testing and checking the products that you make, or maybe you have a bill of materials that you keep for a said project. Maybe you have something like that you've understood to do, right? So you follow that, you do that, and you do the project from start to finish, but map the execution of that project, the build and the delivery. Map it out and compare. So you have the reality of your project that you've completed, like how much you paid for materials, how many materials you used, all of that stuff. 2, now you have the theory of what had to go into this project. Bring that theory and try to use the variables you set up in the way you mapped your processes in your operations databases and stuff, and see what that output gives you. And see how off it was compared to the reality of the project. Maybe you, based on the way you thought your systems were set up, it would finish in X amount of time, but in reality, it took like twice as more time. You would have thought it took you this many materials to do, so you priced them a certain amount, but in reality, you didn't really need that much material. You actually had some leftovers. Maybe so you technically overcharged for materials but undercharged for labor. And things like this. Just map all of that out and see where it went wrong, where it differed. That way, you can understand your original mapping better, right? So that's what you want to do. That's basically what you're doing with your project intelligence. You're mapping all of that out, comparing and refining. You're refining. And when you're able to refine, then you can more accurately configure price and quote. So the better you're able to refine, continuously improving based on project intelligence, you are now able to properly set up databases that you can use to price and quote your projects. It becomes better and better. So up until this point, you are not using AI to quote your projects. Do not do that. As amazing as AI is, as I mentioned before, unless you guide them the right way, just like it was 2 years ago, it is the same as today. They will hallucinate. And you do not want AI to hallucinate things regarding how much you charge a customer. Do not do that. So, what you're doing is you're not asking the AI to come up with the price for you. You are using AI to build the solid, structured foundation that is your system that has the exact values and formulas that you refine over time. You're using the AI to build that system. That system is what is going to give you your prices. That system is very, very, at this point, by this point, when you refine it the way you do, that system is going to be very complicated. But it is a system with set structured foundations and formulas. So it is accurate. It is accurate. It is tried and tested to be true and accurate. You've reiterated this in a way that now it is accurate. And that accuracy is what we're relying on. And that accuracy is what we're asking the agent to rely on when it gives us quotes. Technically speaking, we probably might not even have the AI give us quotes, for the final quote at least. We would be using this system to be able to do that. But building that system takes a very long time. And traditionally, we are speeding that up using AI. And that's where we're using the AI. We're not using AI to give us prices. We're using AI to build the tried and true system that we've always built, but we're just doing it faster. That's where the AI comes in to this. It's all about speed. It's having the cake and eating it. Speed and accuracy. We're trying to funnel this so that we have both speed and accuracy, not just speed and not just accuracy. We're having both. We're trying to have both, and that's where this system comes in. And then once you have that, you have the confidence to be able to sell and manage clients. So in your system, you would set up procedures to be able to generate a quotation sheet that you can send to the customer, generate contracts if they're good and you want to sell to them. So, of course, you won't be able to use this framework when you start a company from scratch and have nothing to nothing to go off of. You would still have to go the traditional way of reaching out to people, figuring out projects, getting one or two projects in and working with it, and then building this as you go. That's the beauty of this. You've tried to get into this business. You like it, but it's just overwhelming. This framework is what you can use at that point to smoothen the process. So at this point, you're iterating through projects, accuracy in your mappings, in your production mapping, and then you're refining your quotation strategy, which will then let you sell. Let's say at this point, for example, you understand your factory, you understand what you can build, your scopes, and you've developed a price. a quotation, a price list of products, and you try to sell. Now you go to people and you ask them, and they'd be like, I'd like to have this instead. Maybe this is too expensive. Maybe this isn't something I want. Okay. At that point, all you ideally have to do is change some variables. Change some variables in your project mapping, in your system mapping. Check and see where you can optimize for speed or where you can optimize in terms of costs. So you have this all mapped out, right? Because you've been tracking it. You built a system that can help you track it. And you're tracking it in a way that it is built based on what your priorities are. And because of that, you know that this is tracking those priorities, and you can just go exactly to them and see what's missing, right? So this is why I say this framework kind of requires you to understand the product you're selling beforehand. It's not for somebody who just who likes an industry and just wants, who feels like they can make money in the industry and then they just dive right into it without any prior experience. This framework is not going to help you until you probably spend like a couple of months or even years testing everything in there and getting a solid understanding of it. At that point, yes, come back and this framework will help you. But that's kind of where this is. It has its fundamental requirement is that you have strong understanding of the product that you're trying to sell, or the niche in which that product you're trying to sell lies in. And now that you document, okay, let's go to 8. 8 is content marketing, content and marketing. So you're tracking your projects, you're tracking issues regarding those projects, you're tracking the outcomes of those projects. Hopefully you have pictures associated with that you can ask the agent to like create a file storage and connect that in your system, right? You can ask it to create a file system, connect that in to your project so that you can upload pictures and videos of these projects. So now when it comes time to do content and marketing, you have everything in here. You have all the information you need in here, properly documented, detailed. You have a knowledge base, SOP. You have everything regarding projects, information about your product. So in terms of marketing, you would at most be building templates and asking the AI to customize and give various templates and options. And let's say you want to upload some pictures onto Instagram. The pictures are right there. And not only the pictures there, the information about the product is there. What materials you use is there. And ideally, maybe you can, I'm kind of talking about this through the lens of somebody building custom cabinetry, right? So this could be not only that, this could be anything that you build that's not only custom, really. So let's say you're trying to build a single product that you're trying to sell, and that has a streamlined process, and you sell online, let's say. So if you sell online, you would be removing the project intelligence part, right? You would instead be doing something like customer feedback. You'd be doing something more like customer feedback in terms of reviews. You'd be checking Google for reviews, and you'd be logging that in. So this would be a little more simplified there. So you'd be looking at their reviews, seeing if there are returns, seeing how many clicks they do, check how many times they check your website, how many of them put your product in the cart and not buy, and you'd be fine tuning towards that. So you'd be shifting the pricing, the project intelligence towards that. So this would change a little bit, but in essence, you're tracking and understanding and creating a structure surrounding the product that you are trying to sell, using AI to be able to implement that very quickly. I probably just explained the entire thing here. So I probably should have gone through each of these slides as I explained all of this. I need to probably do this a little better. But yeah, so basically, let's use this for summary. Let's use this to summarize the entire thing with it. So I'm making things up as I go, as you can see. Framework 1, Framework step number one, product formulation. Create your bill of materials, understand and track everything that you're doing in terms of your product. Understand and dissect everything about your product, the costs, the materials, and everything regarding it. Operational mapping. Understand and break down and systematize everything about the workflow regarding the way you set up your factory or workstation process, from material procurement to production to quality control to delivery, and even refunds or returns. All of that can go into this as well. So the entire system in terms of operations, like in terms of everything that you do. 3, your database, your relational database. So everything that you've created, you are putting it into relational databases to track them based on with respect to each other. So your product, how you build it, how you sell it, how the sale went, how the project go in terms of deliverability. You're tracking all of that information and you're tracking it in a structured database. You're Number 4, you're building a vector database. This one is not as structured, but it has context and metadata to every bit of chunking, every chunk of documentation that you put into this. And this is for the purposes of giving context to any AI agent you use that is either client facing or employee facing. Project intelligence. So this is you tracking the projects that you do with your customers, or the selling stage, in if you're doing something that you're selling a finished product that isn't really customized. So it's something that you're selling in mass on scale. So you're tracking the sales, you're tracking the returns, you're tracking reviews and all of that stuff. So that's what you're doing with this. 5, 6. Now that you have a solid structure and foundation for everything that you built, you can use that to iterate over it again and again. You're looping through frameworks 4 and 5, and when you do that, you are going to be able to see the discrepancies. I mean, if you get it right the first time, you're a genius. More than likely, that's not going to happen, and that's probably why you're watching this video, because it's not happening fast enough. So you map that. You map the both of them. You map the both of them, and you balance it out in a way that you can make and fine-tune your system to be able to output quotations as accurately as possible. And this is very valuable if you're building custom stuff. So in experience, it takes a very long time to quote cabinetry, especially when it's custom, because you're going through a ton of different material, you're going through a ton of different elevations. You're kind of putting the same principles when you quote this stuff out, but everyone wants a different thing. They want different materials, different structure, different positionings, different accessories that go into this thing. So all of that has to be taken into account. The time to process and produce all of that has to be taken into account. So having a system be able to successfully map that out and create a quotation that, like, within a couple of minutes, ideally even a couple of seconds, but you still have to put in the information, right? Maybe you can set up a system that you don't have to put in that information. But what I mean by that is you can take, like, let's say, an elevation for what you want to create. You take a picture of that, send it to the AI, and have it understand that. That is going to take a lot more systematizing, because now you're relying on the AI to interpret something that's written out or drawn. That although I think AI is at a point where it can do it reliably, I wouldn't trust it just yet. The thing is, I'm a traditional person in many ways. I just like to take advantage of technology in a realistic fashion, and I'm not that comfortable having AI read. I'm not that comfortable having AI read drawings and tell me how much to quote. I'm not comfortable with that just yet. Maybe for the intention of, um, let's say, doing a very rough quotation, a customer can use on your website, let's say, so they can go on there, like these visualizers, right? Like those room visualizers. You can they can post a picture, and it's like I would say you could use that as a gimmick to get customers hooked. So, but not as a final quote. So there's still value in having a gimmick. You can be like, okay, so again, I'm using cabinetry as an example. The customer client could, take a picture of their current kitchen and post it on there. And then they could say they want these changes. And then the agent would look at that and be like, okay, let's generate an image by changing variables in terms of the colors. So we can set up the system so that it has information about the colors and the materials we use, and it's generating the image, and then it's going to just kind of push through an assumption in terms of the dimensions and get a quote and then give it to the customer and be like, maybe 6, maybe 7. It's going to give us a uh, it's going to give us a quotation based on that. And then if you'd like to know more, please reach out. We can help you. If you're interested, reach out. We can further refine this. You get what I mean? So you could probably use it for something like that as a marketing or sales gimmick. But I wouldn't use that to do your final quote. I wouldn't trust it to do that yet. Maybe give it a year or two. Maybe it'll be brilliant at it, and then it'll change. But for now, I wouldn't do that. So going to number 7, sales and client management. Basically the same thing. It's kind of the same as framework number 5, but this would be more for the client facing stuff where you're looking at sales, you're looking at metrics with regards to customer satisfaction, you're logging all of that. Issues with projects. So it's kind of intermingled with phase number 5. So this is where you would track the people you quote. So this would okay. So this wouldn't. This would be in addition to that. This would also be the initial stages. So not only are you tracking the outcomes of a project, you're also tracking the number of quotes you give out, the number of people you've reached out to or spoken to, the number of people who've reached out to you. So you're tracking all of this. And finally, number 8, content and marketing automation. So this is where now that you have all your collateral in terms of images, pictures, you can now automate the outgoing sequence of content and marketing automation. So posting images and videos on Instagram, you could set up schedules to do that. You could integrate it with the project files that you have. And what I mean by project files, I mean like images of completed products, not the contract. Don't upload the contract. And you can set all of this up. You can generate content, like the text. You can have the AI generate it. Or I mean, maybe you like doing that stuff, and maybe you can take care of that. So that's the beauty of it, right? So if in, let's say, this entire workflow, you like to build a product and you like to show it off, then you can focus the system to be able to automate all the other stuff that you don't want to do. And you can focus on this. And ideally, maybe the best case scenario is you'll have the time to focus on this and you can do this yourself. You don't need to have the agent generate stuff for social media. You can come up with that. You can put it, you can be proud of it. You can do that. You have the time to do that now, right? So that's the point. So maybe you don't like to do this. You can have the AI do this and you can focus on client outreach. Maybe you're the person who has a product and you just want to show it to every client in person. Go do that. You can choose what parts of this framework you want to keep. Of course, I would say keep the top 4 have that as a part of the system for sure. And the rest of it, and maybe even 5, where you track everything with regards to the project, you have that tracked. But then at that point, you're free to do what you want with the sales and the content marketing, because maybe you're comfortable speaking to people and you want to speak to people, then and you don't feel like you want to trust AI to write stuff for you. Fine, you can do that. Because you set up this system, it's going to take care of everything else to the point where you have the time to do that. That's the point. So at this point, you can choose. Do you want to have the systems built in a way that it scales and take care of everything, or is there something in here you want to add your personal touch to? You can do that. You can definitely do that. You get to choose. You have the power to choose. You have the time to choose. In an ideal world, right? Come on. Okay. So, in terms of technicalities, if you wanted to build this system traditionally without AI, you'd be using software like Salesforce or Notion and Odoo. I've heard of Odoo. You have to set all of these different systems up. So, like the bill of materials, the manufacturing, the client facing side, the reporting, the everything. All of this stuff is going to cost you a lot. So, I mean, the numbers that I'm showing on here, 85 to 950, whatever thousand. So, this is actual systems that are available to purchase on subscription basis. And the problem with them, again, is they are one size fits all. They have everything. They probably, I would argue, maybe even at this point in time, if you used all of them, you'd probably get a better result than what you were if you built a system yourself. I would, personally speaking, in all honesty, that's probably going to be the case. They have spent lots of time researching and investing into their products in a way that it is built to near perfection. The problem is, can you afford it? Can you afford it as somebody who's starting out with just 5 people? And more than likely, you don't need it. That's another thing. These systems are for the 100, 50, 100, 200 employee companies, right? That's not where we're at, and I don't think that's where the most of most of manufacturing is going to be. Given how AI is, I don't think that's how it's going to be. So this is my camera, I guess. Yeah. So this is not going to be as relevant as in our case. So what AI in this case is going to allow you to do is to have a glimpse of it, to have a glimpse of all of those things, to take all of those, remove the waste, because you're building this exactly how you want to build it. You're building it exactly how you want to build it. And you're using, for the most part, open source software. Open source software. So everything that I explained to you, the Postgres, the self-hosted systems using Docker containers, that's I'm talking in developer language at this point. So all of those things are free. They're all free. The only thing you're probably paying for is your internet and your computer. And of course, the AI coding agents. So remember how I said your costs are going to be less than 2,000 a year. The 1,200 odd. If you're using Claude Code, you might find something else. Maybe in the future it might get cheaper. I don't know. You're spending for the AI coding assistant, and that's going to cost you 100 a month, give or take. Give or take. Maybe you use way more than I do. I'm perfectly good building what I've built and building with 100 a month. maybe you'd like to do more, and maybe you want to spend more, but that's kind of where that's kind of what you need, and that's what you can build with it. And again, this is a living system because you built it and you're building it. You build it, you're building it, you're iterating over it. Any changes you want to make to your workstations, you can change it right away. You don't like how the process is being showcased to you on your screen. Like if you use Notion and you don't like how the page looks, tough luck. What are you gonna do? Maybe you'll find some, maybe you'll find a template, or maybe you'll find some plugins that you want to add in there. But here, you just ask the agent to just change the whole thing. It'll change it for you. Make sure it doesn't, remove data or something, but you can change that. You can change how it looks. You can change how it functions. You can change anything. You want to create custom templates that you can, for contracts that you want to send to your clients. Like, it'll do it. It'll do it for you. I mean, your other option is like going into PowerPoint or into Google Docs and manually typing it out yourself. There are beautiful templates online, but you're probably going to charge, you're going to pay for them. Here, you can build it out exactly how you want it. If you have a quotation that you want to send out, you can create it exactly how you want it, what you want shown, what you don't want shown, how you want to structure it, how many pages do you want it to be, what font you want to use, everything. You can change everything. Everything at any time. You can change it to fit what you need. And that's again is the beauty of using AI in your systems. So to that point, using AI is not just limited to factory-based production settings. It could be for any business. That part being a living system that that is kind of basically a reflection of how you think and operate. That's what you're going to be able to get if you understand how to use AI in building things. So yeah, that's basically it. It's like this isn't a product demo. I haven't really I haven't really advertised anything in terms of a product here, you know. So basically all I'm kind of trying to showcase here is how to think if you decide to want to use AI in setting up your systems. If you want to use AI to set up your systems, this is just a framework you can follow in terms of building it. You, of course, some of the caveats with this is you need to have a strong and solid understanding of what it is you want to do. So you need to understand the product you're trying to sell, or the thing that you're working on, or your research, or whatever it is that you want to use this framework for. I mean, yes, I have revolved it around a production environment, but it is not necessarily confined to just that. And the basic idea of this is to harness AI to bring your idea and structures and thoughts into the real world. And this is not vibe coding. I mean, I'd say, oh yeah, I guess if you had to use vibe coding in its literal sense, in the way that it's been advertised online, this is not vibe coding. You are not just telling an agent to like, I have an idea. This is my idea. Build it. No, that is not what you're trying to do. You are doomed to fail if that's what you're trying to do. You are understanding exactly what you want. You understand exactly what you want. And I guess the best analogy I can give you is you understand exactly what you want, and if you got down to it, you would probably build it, but you'd take like a year, which for many people, that's probably realistic. But by the end of the year, the market might change. The systems that people use might change. People might not want what you sell anymore. And more than likely, as unfortunate as it sounds, you probably might not succeed because you took so long to set up your product. You're just using this to speed run the entire testing, the setup, the build, the testing. You're just speed running through the entire thing and you're iterating through the entire thing tenfold. And you're doing all of that in a matter of days or weeks, not months and years. So that's basically how I believe. Maybe it'll be different. Maybe over time we'll see some of these things in this framework might change. This isn't a perfect framework. I don't believe anything is perfect and final. Things change. And I'm just showing you what I feel is a right way to set up the production environment, and it is what I am following and building as of right now. I cannot give you details, but what I can tell you is I started implementing this last month on the 15th, and I am right now in stage 6. And I've iterated through the pricing structure twice. And it's been 3 weeks. And as a result of the second adjustment, we've closed a very big, well, I wouldn't say closed, we are in talks with the client with regards to a very big deal, which we would have been priced out of if I didn't find the issues and variables to configure in terms of pricing. And again, these weren't hallucinated pricings, right? This is setting up the systems and cross-validating it with projects that you've already done and are currently doing, and you're refining. You're refining. And then you test, test, and then you try to come to an equilibrium. And yeah, it makes things very fast. Issues and variables to configure in terms of pricing. And again, these weren't hallucinated pricings, right? This is setting up the systems and cross-validating it with projects that you've already done and are currently doing, and you're refining. You're refining. And then you test, and then you try to come to an equilibrium. And yeah, it makes things very fast. And I'm just saying this so people can get a idea of how much value AI can bring, and that it is not all doom and gloom. So I know I've heard so many companies have been laying off employees this month, and since AI has gotten lots of traction. So there are many people out there who need a fresh start, but have the skills to probably do that, but don't have the means to do it alone. They may know a couple of people that they could probably get together and do something with, but setting up a business is hard, you know? And why not use the tech that displaced you to build something for yourself? Um, it might be a love. I mean, for some people, this might be a love-hate relationship. I don't know, but just the technology is there for the taking, and I just hope that this framework, which I will put a lot more time into, I will flesh this out a lot more online. I think we're onto something here with this framework. I believe that the future of work is going to depend on some version of this. Some version of this. So I'm going to post a lot more about this over time. And I believe that if not me, if not this framework, if not this, some variant of this is going to be key to how people find meaning in work post 2026, 2027, and so on. And they'll be able to do this without, or should I say without, or should I say they should be able to do this and be successful even at a smaller scale, is all I'm trying to say. There's nothing much else to say than that. So if you kind of stay till the end and found all of this valuable, so thank you for staying till the end, for one. And two, if you did find it valuable, please like and subscribe. I'll probably do more videos regarding this. I mean, I might potentially do some where I kind of set up some of these systems in like mock environments. Look forward to that. I might do some of that because although I am implementing this at the first factory where I'm at, I want to challenge this system in other industries, in other fields. I want to do that. I want to see this. I want to see, test, and refine this to a point where we can use this as a means of creating purpose for work, I guess. And yeah, well, again, thank you for watching. Stay tuned. We'll catch you next time.